All right, so this talk is going to be about Alain Badiou's Being an Event and the music of Willie Nelson. And I'll make the connections hopefully a little bit more clear. But first of all, I'd like to say thank you to Walter for again inviting me to be a part of this session, and my apologies that I can't be a part of the session, which is to say, of course, that I can't be there with you right now. I'm talking to you right now from my study here in Grand Forks, North Dakota, and my presentation is really going to be focused around the question of phrasing, and that this is really where Badiou and Willie kind of connect together, and what I want to think about and say about that. So first of all, I'd like to kind of start off with Badiou to kind of frame things theoretically. Badiou, I think, really started the sort of return to ontology, in particular in his book Being an Event. And his notion of the event in Being Event is set up primarily mathematically and through mathematics, which to me is a very interesting way of doing it in a way that invites, I think, comparisons to music whenever you consider the deep and long relationship between mathematics and music. But whenever you move, I think, beyond the mathematical proofs of the event, I think the description of the event that he leaves behind is very compelling. If you want to see a perhaps more accessible version of the event, you could look at, for instance, the book that him and Slavoj Žižek put out called Philosophy in the Present. But the notion of the event from Badiou is that the event interposes itself between the void and itself. It will be said to be an ultra one relative to the situation. And what this comes down to, in basic terms, is that the event is not simply ontologically signified in space until it is pressed between the void and itself, which is to say the event is the exception, which is to say that the event occurs in the space between the void and itself. So if you think about it in terms of almost like an earthquake or a seismograph, the event is the spike, right, in the whole thing. And this gets me over quickly to the music of Willie Nelson, and in my long kind of obsession with Willie Nelson. You know, I've long loved Willie Nelson's music for quite a long time, and one of the reasons is that just like this song "Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain."
And when we kissed goodbye and parted, I knew we'd never meet again. Love is like a dying ember, and only memories remain.
What you'll notice that Willie's doing in this rendition of "Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain" is something that he really has always done throughout his performing career, which is to sing between the phrases, to sing between the notes, which is to say, to sing in an evental way, which is to say, to phrase in a way that for jazz musicians and jazz players is entirely familiar, and to some extent isn't big news. However, I think that really Willie's evental phrasing and the presentation of country music in the format of an event is relevant to us, not only musically but also pedagogically. I teach mostly administrators and many times veteran teachers in our graduate program here, and for many of them, the application of philosophy and critical theory and other things to questions of education, including the very first move, which is the move to decouple education and schooling in order to make education appear more clearly as an event. It's disruptive and it forces them to, in many ways, not just learn a new vocabulary or learn new content or learn how to write or what. It forces them in some sense to relearn how to speak, to relearn how to phrase, to relearn how to pause. And to me, this is the pedagogical significance of Badiou's notion of the event, the exceptional event, the event of which occurs between the space of the void and itself, and is personified and performed in the styling of country music of Willie Nelson. And I think actually, and to some extent, it's even unfair to call Willie Nelson's music, strictly speaking, country music. I think it's really folklore. It's just yeah, it's folk music, and it's beautiful as such. And so this is really my contribution, the ability to think about the relationship between Badiou's notion of the event, Willie Nelson's phrasing, and pedagogy, and really invite you to listen, and to listen between, and to listen and also speak with an attention to the evental, with the possibility of phrasing right in between, or giving a surprise, or causing a disruption within which the event can emerge as an event. I think that for many of us who are interested in questions of curriculum, questions of school reform, questions of teacher empowerment, all the questions I know that we all share in common, I don't know if the question is principally addressed through coming up with answers. I think it's primarily addressed through coming up with different ways of speaking, and not just different ways that celebrate difference for the sake of difference, but different ways that actually can be performed and actually stand out as different precisely because of their evental character, precisely because of their Willie Nelson-like phrasing that not only surprises and disrupts, but emerges as possible as the surprise. Which is to say that perhaps our style of writing, perhaps our style of speaking, perhaps our style of teaching, perhaps our style in general can learn a very great deal from not only jazz, but from anyone who's willing to take the evental leap in music and in performance and in pedagogy. And so this spatial way of understanding and thinking about style, to me, has really become really everything. Even as an artist, I find myself that my dream trio right now is 2 drummers and me playing guitar with an almost total attention to rhythm as opposed to melody. I think this is also evident in the what I would call the progression of hip hop from late hard bop, and modal jazz, which is the attention paid to the phrasing. So whenever the MC is speaking or is rapping, I think the really important part about it is the fact that not so much what the MC is saying, but how the MC is speaking, which is to say how the MC is instrumentalizing the narrative, not the narrative itself. And here we find a return to the ontological, a return to the narrative itself as such, not just the interpretation of the narrative in terms of its epistemological or hermeneutic content. And so that's my contribution. I hope you were able to talk about it more there. I wish I could be with you there. And a final surprise.
1, 2.
Yeah. Say bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Wave bye-bye. All right. Goodbye. Thank you so much. Peace.